Welcome, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at The Misleading Mind by Karuna Caton. In this book, he kind of combines, Buddhist psychology and modern psychotherapy to sort of tackle this age-old question, how to be happy. You've probably heard the saying, everybody's got problems.
Yeah.
But what if we could, use problems as stepping stones to actually being happier?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to be exploring today.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that Caton isn't necessarily saying that you need to convert to Buddhism or anything like that, but rather that Buddhist psychology has a lot of universal truths about the mind, and those are things that that can apply to anybody's life.
Okay, so one of the core Buddhist concepts is that suffering stems from clinging to desires and having these misconceptions about reality.
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to understand that concept without getting lost in, a bunch of religious jargon?
Well, think about it this way, often we attach our happiness to external things, like a new car or a promotion or the perfect relationship. But the thing is that all of these things are constantly changing, right? So Buddhist psychology kind of suggests that a lot of our suffering actually comes from this attachment to impermanent things. So when those things inevitably shift or change, that's when we experience disappointment or pain.
So it's about understanding that happiness isn't really something we find out there. It's not an object, it's not a thing, but rather something that we kind of cultivate from within ourselves. And I think the book's story about Lama Atisha and his cook perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, this cook was known for being really difficult. And rather than, firing him, Atisha actually saw him as his teacher of patience. And this story, it really exemplifies mind training, right? Which is this idea that we can actually use challenging situations as opportunities to practice managing our reactions.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in blaming external factors for our unhappiness, but Atisha's perspective is such a powerful reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to any given situation.
Exactly. And mind training, it's not necessarily about suppressing emotions. It's really about transforming them. It's about recognizing when you're having this negative emotion and then choosing to actually engage with it differently.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how do we actually train our minds? Or are we talking about positive thinking?
It's deeper than just thinking positive thoughts. Caton, he outlines a 4-step process. And the first step is recognizing that you always have a choice in how you react to any given situation.
Okay, so step 1 is acknowledging we have the power to choose our response. Got it. So what's next? What's step 2?
So step 2 is what Caton calls setting up your laboratory. And what that means is creating a space for mindful observation. So, maybe you find a quiet spot, you close your eyes, you bring your attention to your breath, you notice the physical sensations, the thoughts that arise, the emotions that come to the surface. And it's really about observing all of that without judgment.
Interesting. So we're creating a space to just become more aware of our own internal landscape. All right, so what about step 3?
All right, so step 3 is all about identifying the emotion that you're experiencing, and to actually give it a name. So is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it sadness? Is it, jealousy? Whatever. And this naming, it helps create a bit of distance between you and the emotion so that you can actually observe it more objectively.
Okay, so we're getting curious about our emotions, almost like a scientist, observing a specimen under a microscope. So we've observed, we've identified. What do we do with this unruly emotion? What's step 4?
Step 4 is where the mind training techniques actually come in. Caton, he offers a variety of methods, but they all aim to help us detach from the emotion and ultimately transform it.
Okay, give us an example. Let's say I'm stuck in traffic and I can feel that, familiar wave of road rage building. How can I use mind training to transform that anger?
Well, one technique you can use is visualizing the emotion as a cloud. So imagine that anger as a cloud passing through the sky of your mind, and just watch it change shape, watch it move, and eventually, disappear. And as you do this, you're actually creating space between yourself and the anger and weakening its grip on you.
I like that. It feels very calming and manageable. What other techniques can we use?
Another one is the what's called the let go like a fish technique.
Mm-hmm.
And emotions can feel really slippery, and the more you try to grasp them, the more they kind of wriggle away.
Yeah.
So this is about practicing allowing the emotion to just pass without clinging to it, much like, a fish slipping through your fingers.
Yeah. Don't fight the current, just ride the wave. Any other tools in our mind training toolkit?
One that might might resonate with you is the be here now approach. And this emphasizes focusing on the present moment because when we're fully present, we're less likely to get caught up in all the anxieties that, our mind likes to create about the past or the future.
Right. Being present helps us avoid getting swept away by those what if spirals. But sometimes it feels like my emotions are trying to tell me something important. Is there a way to actually learn from our negative emotions?
Absolutely. Caton, he suggests actually approaching difficult emotions with this yes teacher
Yeah.
mindset and asking yourself, what is this emotion trying to teach me? Like really listen to what it has to say. And you might be surprised by the insights that you uncover.
So instead of pushing the emotion away, we're welcoming it as a guide. That's interesting. What about those really intense emotions that feel like they have this strong hold on us?
Well, one really powerful technique for those situations is to actually use the breath as a tool for transformation. So as you exhale, visualize breathing out that negative emotion, and then as you inhale, breathe in positive qualities like compassion or peace.
I love that. Exhaling the negativity, inhaling the positive. It's like a mental detox.
Exactly, exactly. And remember, cultivating positive emotions is a crucial part of this process. And Caton, he emphasizes enthusiasm as a key antidote to self-pity and discouragement.
Okay, so I can see how enthusiasm can provide that extra motivation
hmm
to stick with mind training. But how can we even cultivate enthusiasm, especially when we're facing challenges?
Well, Caton reminds us that enthusiasm is contagious, right? So surround yourself with enthusiastic people, or delve into inspiring stories. Think about like Nick Vujicic, the motivational speaker who was born without limbs, and his motto is no arms, no legs, no worries. I mean, his enthusiasm for life is just it's infectious.
That's a great example. It reminds me of a time I spent with Lama Raspa. He was a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, and he had this incredible radiant enthusiasm. It wasn't superficial cheerfulness. It was this deep, grounded joy that just emanated from him.
Oh wow, it sounds like he really, really embodied these principles of mind training.
He did. And what struck me the most was how his enthusiasm actually impacted those around him. Like people were drawn to his energy, they felt uplifted and inspired in his presence. And it was just this beautiful reminder that our inner state really affects everyone we encounter. But before we move on, let's just quickly recap what we've learned so far.
All right, so we began by exploring the Buddhist idea that clinging to impermanent things it actually causes suffering. And then we discussed the power of mind training, and we use that story of Lama Atisha and his cook to illustrate how we can actually reframe, challenging situations.
Right. And then we went on to outline those four steps of mind training and really emphasizing that it's not about suppressing emotions, but rather transforming them. And we talked about techniques like visualization and breath work and mindful presence. And we also highlighted the importance of cultivating positive emotions like enthusiasm as fuel for this inner work.
Exactly, exactly. And finally we discussed how our inner state really ripples outward, impacting our relationships and the world around us.
Absolutely. Now we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the misleading mind. Okay, so we're back and ready to keep going with the misleading mind. We've been talking about how mind training really focuses on shifting our perceptions and reactions. So I wanted to dig a little deeper into what Caton calls the three conditions of suffering to kind of better grasp those root causes of our unhappiness.
Yeah, that's a really crucial part of the book, really understanding the nature of our problems. Because Caton argues that until we really grasp those root causes, any attempt to alleviate suffering is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
Mhm.
So he suggests that these three conditions are sort of the core conditions from which suffering arises. And those are physical discomfort, constant change, and then ignorance of reality.
Okay, so let's unpack those a bit. So physical discomfort seems pretty straightforward, right? Like we get sick, we experience pain, we age. So how do we how do we apply mind training to something that feels like inherently physical?
Well, it's fascinating actually because Caton emphasizes that even physical discomfort is filtered through our perception.
Right.
Like two people can experience the same level of pain, but their reactions to it can differ dramatically.
That's so true. I mean, think about athletes who push their bodies to these extremes, or people who use mindfulness techniques, during childbirth.
Yeah.
Like their mental fortitude allows them to manage pain in ways that most of us can't even imagine.
Exactly, exactly. So mind training helps us shift our relationship with physical discomfort. It's not about pretending the pain isn't there. It's about changing how we respond to it.
So instead of letting the pain completely consume us, we learn to sort of observe it without being completely overwhelmed by it. Okay, so what about the second condition, constant change? That one feels a bit more abstract. So how do we train our minds to handle this ever-shifting nature of reality?
Well, Keaton, he emphasizes that our resistance to change is actually a major source of suffering. Like we crave permanence, but deep down we know everything changes. We try to control situations, we try to control outcomes, but life inevitably throws us curveballs.
Yeah, it's like trying to hold like water in your hands. The tighter we grip, the more slips through our fingers. So how do we loosen that grip and embrace impermanence without feeling like we're lost at sea?
Well, it begins with acceptance. We need to acknowledge that change is just it's an inherent part of life. I mean, the seasons change, relationships evolve, we age, and trying to resist these natural processes only amplifies our suffering.
I see that, acceptance over resistance.
Yeah.
But this feels like such a huge mental shift. So how do we actually move from fearing change to embracing impermanence?
Mindfulness is key here. When we're fully present in the moment, we're less likely to get, tangled up in anxieties about the past or fears about the future. We can just, appreciate the richness of each experience without clinging to it or fearing its passing.
So it's about savoring each moment without worrying about what's coming next.
Okay, that makes sense. So that leads us to the third condition, ignorance of reality. This one seems quite philosophical. So what does Caton mean by this?
Well, he's really talking about understanding how our minds actually construct our reality. We often mistake our thoughts and our perceptions for objective truth, when in reality they're just stories that our minds are telling us.
So it's like those optical illusions where our brains kind of trick us into seeing something that's not actually there.
Exactly. We get caught up in our own narratives, our judgments, our assumptions, without recognizing that they're mental constructs. And these constructs can actually create a lot of unnecessary suffering.
So our minds are master storytellers, creating these tales that don't always reflect the full picture. So how do we become aware of these stories
Yeah.
and learn to see through the illusion? It all comes back to self-awareness, cultivate that ability to observe your thoughts and your emotions without automatically identifying with them. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is it serving me?
So we're basically fact-checking our own thoughts,
Yeah.
right? Challenging the narratives that are causing us pain. This all feels very, very internal. So does mind training make us more passive in the outer world, less likely to stand up for ourselves or pursue goals?
Not at all. In fact, Caden argues that mind training actually empowers us to engage with the world more skillfully. When we're not ruled by our emotions, we can make clearer decisions, we can communicate more effectively, and we can actually pursue our goals with more focus.
So it's about responding to challenges with
Yeah.
wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting out of fear or anger.
Mm.
But I imagine this level of self-mastery takes time and practice, right? So are there any shortcuts or quick fixes?
Well, there's no magic bullet, unfortunately. Caden's very clear that mind training is a lifelong journey, not a destination. And like any worthwhile pursuit, it takes effort, it takes patience, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
No instant enlightenment then.
Yeah.
So it's about embracing the process, not striving for perfection. But I know our listeners are eager for some practical tips
Yeah.
to incorporate mind training into their daily lives.
Yeah.
So what are some simple ways that we can start flexing those mental muscles?
Well, mindfulness meditation is a great starting point. Even just a few minutes a day can make a difference. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and just focus on your breath. Observe your bodily sensations, your thoughts, your emotions, just without judgment.
Okay, so training our minds to be more present, less reactive. What else can we try?
Gratitude journaling is another really powerful practice. Each day, just write down three things you're grateful for, no matter how small they seem. And this shift in focus can really foster contentment.
I love that. It's so easy to focus on what's
Yeah.
wrong, but appreciating the good things, that could be really transformative. Any other advice?
Yeah, pay attention to your self-talk.
Mhm.
Notice those negative thoughts and challenge them. Replace self-criticism with self-compassion. Treat yourself with the kindness that you would offer, to a friend.
That's such a crucial reminder. We can be
Yeah.
so hard on ourselves. So practicing self-compassion is so essential for inner peace. We focused a lot on individual transformation, but how does mind training actually affect our relationships with others?
Oh, this is where it gets really exciting because when we cultivate inner peace and compassion, it naturally flows into our interactions with others. We're less reactive, we're more patient, we're more understanding, we can communicate better, and we can actually resolve conflicts more skillfully.
It's like the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If we're not taking care of our own well-being,
Yeah.
it's really hard to show up as our best selves in relationships.
Precisely. Mind training really helps to fill our cup so that we have, something to offer to others. It allows us to connect from a place of genuine kindness and understanding.
That makes sense. But let's be realistic. Even with mind training, relationships can be tough. So how do we handle those situations where people hurt us without losing our inner peace?
That's a great question because, life throws these curveballs and sometimes people disappoint us, even betray us. So how can mind training help us navigate that hurt?
Well, this brings us to one of the most transformative aspects of mind training, which is forgiveness. And Caton, he emphasizes that forgiveness is not about condoning harmful actions. It's about releasing ourselves from the anger and the resentment that keep us tethered to the past.
So it's about freeing ourselves from bitterness, not letting the actions of others define our happiness. But forgiveness can be so difficult, especially when we've been deeply hurt. So are there any specific techniques that can help?
Well, one really powerful practice is loving kindness meditation. It's also known as metta meditation, and it involves cultivating feelings of love and compassion, starting with ourselves and then gradually extending it outward. So to loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and eventually all beings. Yeah, I've heard about meditation. It's about tapping into that wellspring of love that's within us all. But what if we really struggle to forgive someone who caused us like a great deal of pain? How do we find compassion for someone who hurt us so deeply?
Well, it can help to remember that everyone is on their own journey,
Mm.
right? And the person who hurt us may be acting from their own, pain or unhealed wounds. And this doesn't excuse their actions, but it can offer a new perspective.
Right, recognizing that we're all flawed human beings, just doing the best we can with what we have.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes the hardest person to forgive is actually ourselves. We can hold on to guilt and regret for years, letting past mistakes really define us.
That's so true. It's like carrying like a heavy backpack full of rocks, just weighing us down and holding us back.
Exactly. And Caton encourages us to practice self-forgiveness. Acknowledge your mistakes, learn from them, and then let them go. We're all works in progress, and every moment offers a fresh start.
We've covered a lot of ground,
Mm.
from the nature of suffering to the power of forgiveness. So could you maybe summarize the most important takeaways from the misleading mind?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the book, it really reminds us that true happiness is cultivated from within. It's not about our circumstances, it's about our relationship with our own minds. And mind training provides us with the tools to face life's challenges with resilience and compassion.
It's about becoming the captain of our own ships.
Yeah.
you know, Steering towards calmer waters, even amidst the storms. So let's give our listeners some practical examples of how they can actually apply these teachings in in their daily lives.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine you're feeling swamped by work deadlines,
Right.
and instead of letting stress just take over, take a few minutes for mindfulness meditation. Focus on your breath, calm your nervous system.
Yeah, it's like hitting the pause button amidst the chaos, allowing us to kind of find our center again.
Yeah.
So what about dealing with those difficult people that we all encounter?
Oh, right. Yeah. So let's say you have a coworker who's constantly negative, right? So
Mhm.
instead of getting pulled into their drama, practice compassion. Remind yourself that they might be struggling with their own, challenges, and then set healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Limit your interactions with them, and focus on those who uplift you.
So it's about protecting our own energy while still responding with kindness. That makes sense. But what about when we've actually been wronged? How do we handle anger and resentment when those feelings feel, justified?
Yeah, so let's say a friend betrays your trust. So instead of letting anger consume you, choose forgiveness. And again, this doesn't excuse their actions. It's about releasing yourself from the pain of the past.
Hmm.
Acknowledge your hurt, communicate honestly, and then move forward, focusing on building healthier relationships.
It's about defining ourselves by resilience, not by the actions of others. That's a really powerful message. This has been such an insightful conversation. Any final words of wisdom before we move on to the last part of our deep dive?
Yeah, just remember, mind training is a continuous process. It's not a one-time fix.
Mm.
It's about cultivating a way of being that allows us to live more fulfilling and meaningful lives. So embrace those challenges and be kind to yourself along the way.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the misleading mind. We've really explored like the how-to of mind training, all those
Yeah.
techniques for shifting our perceptions, changing our reactions. But I want to circle back to the why behind all of this. Like what's the ultimate aim of mind training? What are we really working towards?
Well, that's a question that really
Delves into the core of Buddhist philosophy.
hmm,
The ultimate goal of mind training is enlightenment,
hmm,
which is a state of liberation from suffering and a profound understanding of reality.
Okay, so enlightenment is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it can sound, pretty lofty and kind of out of reach. For those of us who aren't, living in a monastery, so can you maybe demystify it a bit? Like
Yeah.
what does enlightenment actually look and feel like in everyday life? Yeah, it's not about, suddenly acquiring supernatural powers
hmm.
or levitating or anything like that. Enlightenment is really about cultivating lasting peace, compassion, and wisdom. It's about, seeing past the illusions of our ego and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
So it's about transcending that limited self-centered view and understanding our place in the grand scheme of things. So if enlightenment is like the ultimate destination, how do we know we're on the right track? What are some signs that we're actually making progress?
Well, one of the most tangible signs is a noticeable decrease in your suffering. You'll find yourself less reactive, less easily thrown off balance by life's inevitable, ups and downs. You'll experience more peace, more contentment, and more genuine joy.
So it's not that the challenges disappear altogether, but we just handle them differently. We're less likely to get swept away by those emotional storms,
Yeah.
and better able to kind of find that inner calm. But what about those times when we do falter?
Yeah.
Those moments where anger or fear or self-doubt kind of creep back in. Does
Yeah.
that mean we're failing at mind training?
Not at all. Setbacks are they're just part of the process. Everyone stumbles. The key is to approach those moments with self-compassion. So instead of, beating yourself up, acknowledge the misstep, learn from it, and then just gently, steer yourself back on course.
It's like having a patient and encouraging coach instead of that harsh inner critic. But let's be honest, mind training can be tough. It takes effort and it takes a willingness to face those, less than pleasant parts of ourselves. So what advice would you give to someone who's feeling discouraged or overwhelmed?
Reconnect with your motivation. Why did you embark on this journey in the first place? Was it to find more peace, or to cultivate more loving relationships, or to, live a more meaningful life? Let those aspirations fuel your practice.
Right. Remembering our why can be so powerful, like that deeper purpose behind our efforts. But sometimes, even with the best intentions, we might feel like lost or unsure of how to move forward. So what resources can help us stay the course?
Well, there are so many great resources available. Books, podcasts, meditation groups, teachers. Don't hesitate to seek guidance and support. Connecting with others who are on a similar path can make all the difference.
It's like having a hiking buddy for our inner journey, right? Someone to offer encouragement, celebrate milestones, and help us find the trail again when we wander off. Speaking of trails, it's time to wrap up our deep dive. So, what are some key takeaways you'd like listeners to ponder as they continue exploring, the misleading mind?
Well, one of the most profound insights from Caton's work is the sheer power of our minds. We have this incredible ability to shape our reality, to choose happiness, to cultivate peace. But that power also comes with responsibility. We need to be mindful of the thoughts we entertain, the stories we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
and the actions that we take.
So we're not just passengers in our own lives. We're the architects of our experiences. We're the authors of our own stories.
Exactly. Mind training empowers us to become conscious creators,
Yeah.
to build lives that are filled with purpose, meaning, and genuine joy.
Well, this has been a truly enriching exploration of the misleading mind. We've covered so much from the nature of suffering to the path of enlightenment, but ultimately the journey of mind training is a deeply personal one, right? It's about taking these teachings and applying them to our own unique lives, navigating our own unique challenges.
So as you go about your day to day, just remember the power of your mind. Choose to engage with the world from a place of awareness, compassion, and wisdom. Embrace the journey of mind training, and watch as your life unfolds with greater peace, joy, and fulfillment.